Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston from Want Leverage Communications, a public relations and thought leadership consultancy. So great to see you here today. And if you like what you see during today's broadcast, please visit my website at wantleverage.com and download my hot off the press tip sheet, 5 hidden LinkedIn strategies that PR teams swear by. So check it out and let me know what you think. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Janet Falk. Welcome, Janet.
Hi,
She
Julie.
Great to see you. She is a communications professional with more than 30 years experience in-house as a consultant at public relations agencies. Um, as chief strategist of Falk Communications and Research, Janet manages proactive media outreach and has secured placements of executives and events in local, national, and international print and broadcast media. Of course, that includes digital too, I'm sure. Um, for example, articles in 3 industry publications generated more than 800 phone calls from hotel industry CFOs inquiring about a client's services. And I love that, Janet, because you're really relating the power of PR to sales and generating interest, which is sort of a return on an investment stat that we often don't promote enough. And this is so much more impactful and meaningful and economical than buying a list of hotel executives' names and email addresses for cold calling. So, thank you for that. Today, we're going to talk about maximizing conferences for PR. And like me, you probably go to a number of specific industry conferences per year, either as an attendee or perhaps as a speaker or exhibitor. And I don't know about you, but I hear so many people saying after the fact, why didn't I blah, blah, blah? Why didn't I really take advantage of that particular setting? Perhaps you got very, mired in your appointments and preparing your exhibit booth. And, it goes on and on and on. But Janet's here today to share some terrific tips on how you can really optimize opportunities for publicity during trade events and industry conferences. So she's also written an ebook, which we'll tell you about more during the show, how to connect at conferences. And I'm so glad you're here today to share your insights on this topic, Janet.
I'm very excited to speak with you and share my ideas with your audience.
That's great. So, how can conferences be a great source of publicity? Let's start at for the basics.
Well, let's look at the idea that you're attending as a person who's interested in this subject matter. And then we'll consider what happens when you're attending as a speaker. And then we'll consider what happens when you are an exhibitor, because I'm sure
Great.
that many people go with that in mind. So if you're going as an attendee, you're going for several reasons. One is to keep in touch with the marketplace, to find out what is keeping your clients and your potential clients and your referral sources up at night. So you want to talk to the people who have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in that particular industry or that particular profession. Now, how can you identify who are those people? One way is to look at the agenda and see who are the speakers. So those are the people that you'd like to be meeting at the event.
I want
And
to just jump in for 1 second and say that I think it is so important for people to think of and start planning for these events way in advance.
absolutely.
Because to do it even a month before is not really enough time to do all of these important things to really optimize the experience.
Yes. Well, if you're going to more than one conference a year, then you will be repeating some of the same activities. But let's just say this is your first conference of the year.
Great.
So, in order to get in touch with the people who have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the market or in the industry or in the profession, you want to look at the agenda and see who are the speakers and reach out to them in advance of the conference and say, I'm so excited to hear your presentation about topic A. Are you going to address aspect B? Right? So now you've started a dialogue with the speaker and you've shown them what you as an attendee are interested in. Now, from the perspective of the speaker, you're going to think, oh, I got a hot one here. Here's somebody who wants to come to my session. And I had not thought about topic A with respect to aspect B. Maybe I should take a closer look at that and find a way that I can incorporate this feedback into my presentation.
I love that.
So another thing that you can do when you're reaching out to the speaker in advance is to say, is there a question that you would like me to ask during your presentation wrap up? Now, you want to know what happens, Julie, at the end of the session. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to ask a question or nobody wants to ask a question.
And then there's that dead silence.
Right. But if you have this, as the speaker, know that you were only able to address a fraction of what it was you wanted to say on a particular topic, and someone asks you a question to delve deeper into that topic, then you can answer it, and you can answer it more fully. So giving the speaker the opportunity to plant a question will not only enhance the speaker's presentation, but it's going to win you bonus points with the speaker. At the end of the session, when everybody crowds around the speaker to exchange business cards and so on, you can sit back in your chair and at the end, go up to the speaker and say, thank you so much for addressing my question about aspect B. And the speaker will say, oh no, Janet, thank you for asking that question, right? And so now you have developed a bond with that speaker. So as an attendee, as I said, you have an opportunity to get more involved with the speakers by looking at the agenda and getting in touch with them in advance, asking them, are they going to talk about a particular topic within that broader issue, and getting the opportunity to ask a question. Now, another thing that you can do is, say your conference is in Las Vegas and you live in New York. If it's a membership organization, you can look in the directory for people who have your same interest or are from also the New York area. And you can get in touch with them in advance and say, I'm planning to attend this conference. I see that you are also from New York, or that you also have an interest in X topic. I'd like to meet up with you when we're at the event. Please be in touch with me and we can work out the details. Or if you're not planning to attend, then let's get in touch afterwards and I can debrief you. So this way I will be able to share my insights of what I learned from the conference, even if you weren't able to attend. So using the directory and using the agenda of the conference are two ways that you can be cultivating relationships. And I think that that can be very helpful in raising your visibility in the industry and among your peers.
And you're providing so much value.
Right. Now, a third aspect to the interaction with the speakers is many times the moderator on a panel is a reporter. And don't you want to meet this person? You can introduce yourself to the reporter the same way that you are introducing yourself to the speakers. And this reporter doubtless covers the industry or covers the profession and is supposed to be neutral, not to have a point of view on whatever is the topic that's under discussion. So take the opportunity to introduce yourself as well to a reporter who may be moderating that particular panel.
So in terms of planning ahead, because when I was director of marketing communications for the toy industry for a while, and overseeing the annual New York Toy Fair, we would start planning the conference between 12 and 18 months in advance. And so we were already looking for speakers or, vetting speaker pitches way back then, because being a speaker at a conference is a wonderful opportunity to get yourself more visibility and build your credibility and meet people as well.
Right, right. So one thing you can do if you want to be a speaker is at the end of the conference, introduce yourself to the conference team and tell them what a great event it was, how much you enjoyed it, how much you learned. And then you can do a follow-up email and say, upon reflection of our conversation at the end of the conference, because after all, they spoke to many people and there was a
Yes,
lot
sure.
up. You say, upon reflection, at the end of the conference, it occurred to me that there was very little discussion about topic Y. And I think that this is something that people need to hear more about. So you can introduce yourself to the conference organizers as someone who brings insight for the next conference. So you don't want to do it at the event itself because they're so busy and caught up with many other things. But if you have introduced yourself in a positive way, offering them, feedback and congratulations about how successful the event was, and then you follow up later with, I have an idea for a topic that could be addressed in the future, they will pay more attention to you. And I think that's a way to introduce yourself and get on the list of potential speakers for a future event. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And I think, a lot of conference producers have offshoot events throughout the year. So it could be that you're positioning yourself for other speaking opportunities, that occur before the next big event. So it's definitely worthwhile to do that, to introduce yourself and start, developing and generating some ideas that might work for them in the future.
Very good. Yes.
You'll position yourself as a valuable resource and idea resource for them. So one of the things that I even find uncomfortable, and I'm in public relations, is the networking aspect, because networking at conferences and trade events can be overwhelming. It could be uncomfortable for many people. How do you optimize? How do you really get involved and break through that feeling of being like awkward, at these programs and events, and start networking and introducing yourself to people? What are some of the natural ways you can get in there?
Okay, so I mentioned looking ahead at the directory and
Yeah.
introducing yourself in advance. Now, if you're a speaker, because we didn't get to touch on this, then people will want to be speaking with you. People will want to interact with you. So that's a given. You don't have to be nervous about that. And if you're an exhibitor, the same way, right? People are going to stop by your booth. In fact, as an exhibitor, you probably have a list of the attendees who are going to be at the event so that you can do advanced bookings of appointments and invite people to come by and see your booth and maybe take part in the raffle or take part in the demonstration of whatever service it is that they provide. But there are other opportunities that need not be the coffee break or the cocktail hour when you can be doing networking. So the first I want to think about in order of the day as it progresses is breakfast. When people go to breakfast, they just want to grab their hot beverage and their Danish and then dash off to the first session. But some people are going to linger a little bit. And so those are the people that you want to sit down at a table and have a quick conversation. Nobody's going to stay there for very long, but it's an opportunity for you to do one of two things. One is you can sit with people that you already know, people that you know are going to be there. You've met with them before, or you've done work with them at some point. So you can say hello to people and just get a quick catch up and then move on to the next. But you can also sit with people that you have no idea who they are and you've never met them before or seen them before. And you just pick a random table and you sit with them and you have a quick chit chat. So breakfast is an opportunity for very quick interactions and so on. Now you go into the session, and after the first panel is finished, then people are going to be getting off the dais and going up to the dais and they're going around the room and so on. Turn to the person next to you and say to them, what did you think about what the speaker said? Do
That's an
you
easy way.
do you disagree? How are you going to implement this in your business or in your practice? What are you going to tell other people about it? Are you going to tell your clients? Are you going to tell your colleagues? And how are you going to do that? So take the opportunity to just casually turn to the person next to you and say, how did you interpret what that person was saying? How are you going to use that information? Who are you going to share it with? How are you planning to share it? And so on. Now, I learned a tip from someone a couple of months ago who said, never take the aisle seat. Take the seat next to the aisle, because
Interesting.
someone is always going to rush into the room at the last minute and look for a place to sit, and they will be so grateful to you for leaving that seat open. So that's something else.
Yeah, I
Now,
like that a lot.
yeah, right. And so now you're going to go to lunch, right? So lunch is a time when you can have a more extended conversation, right? You talk to this person, you talk to the next person, and you're able to share views. And you're able to say, for example, oh, you went to session A, I went to session B. Can you tell me what went on there? What did you think of the speaker? What is it that you learned? How are you going to use that? How are you going to share that information with the other people in your circle, your clients, your colleagues? How are you going to implement it for yourself? So use the opportunity at lunch to have a more extended conversation with people that you're seated with. And as I said, you have the opportunity to sit with people that you already know, or you can sit with people that you've never met before and you want to create a new conversational platform. So this will get you through most of the day, right? Because you're going to be
Sure.
in sessions, you're going to be in meals. And finally, what's going to happen is you're going to run into some of the same people over and over again through the course of the day, because they're going to be at the same session as you, or you might run into them at lunch, and you can say to them, I met someone that you should meet. Or is there
Ah,
anyone now that you know
so
something about?
making connections for people.
Right, right. So be each other's wingman or wingwoman and say, I met someone and I think you should talk to this person. Or I thought of you, somebody mentioned this article, I think this would be interesting to you, and so on. So take the opportunity to extend that initial conversation and be a buddy to this other person. Introduce them to someone or ask them if there's somebody else that they met that they think would be a valuable resource to you. So remember, it's not one and done, right? You're always engaging in
Yeah.
conversation. You're looking for ways that you can share your insight with someone else and that they can share what it is that they learned in the session with you, and introduce them to other attendees or maybe a speaker, and so on, that you've had an interaction with during the course of the conference. Have you tried this?
I have actually, and I think that it works really, really well. And it kind of is an icebreaker. It kind of um, breaks through any nervousness that or awkwardness that you might be feeling to do that. Let's talk about
My name tag.
your name tag, because Janet's wearing that for a reason today. But I think it is such a great idea, and yet a lot of people still rely on the name tag on the lanyard, which often lies very low, and it doesn't necessarily tell you what you want it to really say.
Right, right. I think it's important to look at the lanyard and keep it, because while you're at the event, you want people to know that you too are at the event, right? So when you run into them in the hallway of the hotel, for example, then they can see that you're at the same conference. But the thing about my name tag is it has my name in a very large font. And it doesn't have the name of my company. My company is Full Communications and Research. Your company is Want Leverage. If you have to explain what the name of your company is, that's an opportunity. But most people want to know what you do and what you can do for them. So that's why my name tag says my name, Janet Falk, and public relations. And I wear it very prominently so that I print it in a large font very prominently so that it's clear what it is that I do. And then you can ask me, who do you work with? What kind of activities do you perform? What kind of services do you provide? And so on. Because unless you work for a household name, and not many of us do, then, and even if you do work for a household name, nobody knows exactly what it is that you do there. So I find that this is more effective.
What do you think about business cards, Janet? Do you think people are still really using them, or is it now, are we now in the age of using the LinkedIn QR code?
I think it's very helpful to have a business card, because if we're in a conversation and I'm mentioning to you, that reminds me of this article, this blog post, this newsletter, this webinar, this podcast, I want to be able to share that information with you. So I'm going to ask you for your business card so that I can make a note on what it is that I promised to you. And then I can send that to you after the conference. Now, I have a client who has an assistant, and what she does is so interesting. She takes a photo of the person's business card, and then she sends a text or an email to her assistant, and she says, please send Julie Livingston the article, newsletter, webinar, slide deck, client alert, bulletin, whatever it is. And what happens? At the end of the day, when Julie Livingston goes back to her hotel room, she gets an email from the assistant with whatever it was that Janet Falk promised her. And then the next day, she runs into Janet Falk in the hallway and she says, Janet, thank you so much for sending me that, whatever it was that I promised you. I'm going to read it more carefully when I get back to the office. So look at how you have used the business card. Either you're making a notation to yourself to send something in a follow-up, or if you have an assistant, you're telling your assistant to take care of it, which they will do in the course of their day. And then the following day, or whenever they get back to the office, the person is going to receive that information. Now, I want to point something out here, which is if you are a solopreneur like yourself and myself, and you do not have a team, you can hire a virtual assistant for just a few hours a day during the time that you're at the conference and ask them to take care of this.
It makes a huge difference. I have a VA and it makes a huge difference.
Right. And then at the end of the day, when you go back to your office, having concluded the conference, then you're already 3 steps ahead because you have arranged for this person to get the information that you promised them. Now, I understand that people like to link up with LinkedIn QR codes. I myself don't use it, and that's simply because my practice on LinkedIn is to have a conversation with the person. And then when I found that we have some shared interests or can be helpful to each other, then I'm going to connect with them on LinkedIn. But that's not everybody's practice. I understand that other people behave differently. But having a business card is a great way of making note to yourself of what it is that you talked about and what it is that you promised them, and maybe facilitating the delivery of whatever that information was that you agreed to send them.
I think that's a really nice touch, and something that could be somewhat unexpected. So it could really form a good an initial connection with somebody. I love that. So let's say the conference or event has been completed. What are things that you can continue to do to cultivate these new relationships without sounding wooden or overly salesy?
Okay. One thing is when you get back to the office, I hope that your out of office automatic reply said that you're not returning that particular day, but you're returning the following day. So if the conference is on Wednesday, then you don't say that you're coming back on Thursday, say that you're coming back on Friday. And why is that? Because on Thursday, when you get back in the office, you're going to be doing all this follow-up activity. Plus, you're going to be catching up on everything that happened while you were away from the office. So give yourself an extra day
Great
to do
idea.
that follow-up and to do that cleanup. Now, how are you going to follow up? You're going to get in touch with the people that you met. If you took a selfie photo of yourself with them, then you're going to share that with them and say how much you enjoyed the conversation and offer some particular insight, however brief. If you have promised them some material and you weren't able to send it or have your assistant send it, then you're going to send that information as well. Now, in that follow-up note, you can do several things. One is say, if you'd like to keep in touch with me on a casual basis, we can connect on LinkedIn. You can follow me on these social media accounts. You can subscribe to my newsletter. Here's a link to the latest issue. You are not subscribed until you agree to subscribe. Here's a link to my blog, and so on. So in your follow-up activity, you want to make sure that you recognize the person, reflect on what it was that you talked about, offer them whatever it is you promised them, and provide a way for them to keep in touch with you, whether on social media, through LinkedIn connections, or subscription to your newsletter or your blog. Then you're going to do one more thing, which is you're going to set yourself a reminder so that 2 weeks from now, when you have caught up with all your incoming work that piled up when you were out of the office, and you've completed all your follow-up activity, 2 weeks from now, you're going to send a second follow-up, because it's not one and done. And you want to say, this came across my desk, your business card resurfaced, I was talking about this issue with so-and-so, your name came up in conversation. Use some pretext to, again, reconnect with this person so that they will be reminded that you had this conversation at the conference. They will reconnect with that memory. And then you will continue to provide an opportunity when you can resume the conversation about whatever it was that was the topic. So it's important to do the follow-up, but it's also important to do the second follow-up. And I think that's a gap that many people have to grapple with.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I'm also wondering about photos that you take during the event. I think it's so important to add to the momentum of the conference or event that you're attending by posting photos during and after the program occurs. And I will add that I think it's important to use the official hashtag for the event so that you become part of this flurry of activity around it.
And that ingratiates you also with the conference organizers. Remember, we want to be friendly with them so that they will invite us back the next time. And I want to add something else, which is I had the experience when I attended a social media industry conference a number of years ago. And this was in a much earlier stage of social media. And there were many luminaries who were speaking at this 2-day event. And what I did was at the end of the first day and at the end of the second day, I posted what I thought were the highlights of what certain speakers had talked about. And I developed this list, I put it on my letterhead, and I posted it on LinkedIn. Julie, you cannot believe the large number of comments and likes and views that I had of these 2 posts. Why don't you take a guess?
2,000.
16,000 one day and 18,000 the other.
That's awesome. Wow, that's amazing.
Right. And how did that happen? Because I tagged the speakers and I used the conference hashtag. And so people who are interested in those speakers and in social media and in the conference, but weren't able to attend, then they were able to view my highlights. Now, did this turn into any views of my profile or my website? Did I get any calls? No, but I thought that it was important for the industry, for those who were unable to go to this conference in New York City, to find out what were the topics and best practices being discussed by these social media leaders. But imagine 34,000.
That's incredible. And you know what? You never know when somebody's going to come back to you because of that particular post.
Exactly. You have to be planting seeds all the time and then be able to follow up with them.
So Janet, how can people get your ebook, How to Connect to Conferences?
Okay, my website is my name, Janet L for Love, FALK.com. You see it scrolling here below. And I have a page on my website called Resources.
Great.
And there you will see many free items that I give away, whether they're lists, checklists, ideas, templates, And this particular ebook is available for free because I believe that everyone should be doing more to maximize their attendance at conferences.
That's great. Well, this has been a terrific conversation, Janet. I'm so glad you joined me. And for everyone else, please check out my website and download my new tip sheet, 5 Hidden LinkedIn Strategies That PR Teams Swear By. And I'll see you next time on PR Patter. Janet, thank you.